Recently I've noticed a number of comments under my Let's Play videos for Leonard expressing confusion as to why he is not using more shouts. So I thought I would just quickly explain it, if that's actually something I'm capable of doing. Quickly explaining things. You may or may not have noticed that the 4 shouts that Leonard has unlocked are all shouts that he has gained from either a dragon or a greybeard. Unrelenting Force he got from a dying dragon. Summon Durnavir he got from Durnavir, and Clear Skies and Whirlwind Sprint are both shouts he was taught by greybeards. All of the other shouts that he has, I suppose, technically learned but not unlocked are ones that he has gained from word walls. Now he has gained a few of the extra words for, say, Whirlwind Sprint on word walls, but he learned the initial shout from, well, what I'm going to call a mentor. For all of these shouts he did not. That is pretty important, because in all of these cases, except Unrelenting Force is the odd one out here in some ways, in that he essentially learned this by accident from a dying dragon, and if you remember the episode, I actually made it more of an involuntary, accidental thing that he tried that shout out. But the other 3 shouts are shouts he was taught by a sentient creature that explained the shout to him. Basically told him exactly what was going to happen so that he knew. In fact, with Whirlwind Sprint, they even demonstrated it. He had a mentor. Summon Durnavir, that is just Durnavir's name. Durnavir explained exactly what was going to happen to him when he did this. So these are things he was, for want of a better word, taught. Now the lore does state that the Dragonborn can, learn shouts very easily by channeling the dragon soul energy. But it doesn't necessarily insist that he has an innate knowledge of what the hell all of these things do. And it also doesn't insist that the Dragonborn is naturally predisposed to experiment. Because whilst, these shouts give you some vague idea of what is going to happen, they don't explain it in great detail, whereas, with these you could argue it was explained to Leonard. This is just critically important and gives you insight into Leonard's character. This sort of thing here, these brief explanations, are not enough for Leonard. If Leonard were a gamer, Leonard is not the sort of gamer like me. He is not the sort of person who would try things out just for the fun of things and, discover it. He's the sort of gamer that would want to go off to the wiki page and read 5 pages of documentation about the particular shout, and then probably go to the forums, ask which one was best, what's the best way to do it, and end up watching 5 YouTube videos before he even thought of taking it. That's Leonard. He is not one of nature's natural experimenters if the experiment involves his own body. In many ways, it's similar to the way Leonard learns magic. Now, we all know that Skyrim itself lets the Dragonborn learn magic ridiculously fast and ridiculously easy. You could be a complete noob at magic, 20 skill in every single school of magic, and yet you can learn any spell you can get your hand on instantly, no matter where you are. You could get a master spell in a school of magic you've only got 20 skill in, and you could learn it right here, right in the middle of the road, in the middle of combat, or at the bottom of a lake drowning. You could just open up the book and learn it. Of course, I have not done this with Leonard. In fact, Leonard was extremely nervous of magic initially. He really only started to use it out of necessity. If you remember clairvoyance, he was trying to find a way up one of those mountains, I think, and he just couldn't find it, and he'd run around the mountain several times, and in sheer desperation ended up having to learn clairvoyance and learn it. Since then he has learned far more spells. He's the Archmage and is now a Master Illusionist. He's a Master Illusionist and even a competent Alteration Mage. But it took a while. I actually restricted the number of spells that Leonard could learn. I made it so he could only learn a few spells each week, perhaps, or 2 weeks. He would go back to the college and he would learn 1, maybe 2 new spells every now and again. So it limited the amount he could learn. Since then, I've actually started using a mod called Better Spell Learning that forces Leonard to learn spells by reading the same book over and over again, night in, night out, until he finally masters it. But even before that mod, I played it as though it took Leonard time. I also tended to go back to the college to talk to mages, especially if it was a school of magic that I was unsure of. So if it was something in alteration, I would go and speak to Tolfdir. I do the same for the perks. If I wanted to take an alteration perk, I would go and seek out Tolfdir and then learn the perk, as though Leonard was getting, advice. He was getting taught by a teacher. And he still does that, even though he is more competent. He can now learn alteration spells far more by himself through books. But if he was to test a new spell that was, shall we say, unusual, dangerous, or made him feel uncomfortable, he would absolutely go to the college and test it, surrounded by mages who could possibly come and help him out if he got in trouble. That is his nature. So, and I do understand some people are going to say, but these are all things that are contrived. You, Gopher, have added these when they don't exist in the game because you, Gopher, do not want Leonard to use these spells or use these shouts. And my answer to that is, yeah, that's exactly what I've done. And in fact, where possible, I've actually modded the game. So, for example, on the sneak perk, shall we go? Yeah, Shadow Warrior. I have modded it to require 75 illusion because it does involve invisibility. I've made Laughing Ghost require 90 alteration because it involves teleportation. I've actually added a lot of restrictions to a lot of these perks. Some restrictions I have not modded in yet, but I'm actually going to. For example, Pickpocket, the final Dragon Horde perk, I decided that I was not able to take this until I became Dragonborn. I haven't actually modded it that way, but I'm probably going to. I don't need to, but it's just for my own peace of mind. These are restrictions I've added to the game where possible via a mod. But sometimes I don't even need a mod. Sometimes I can just do it by that's the character I'm playing. And that, in the end, is kind of what I'm doing with shouts. There is also the fact that things like clear skies make Leonard nervous because he's worried that it will attract a dragon. If you think about clear skies, you're shouting into the sky when it's at its, worst, right? There's clouds, rain, snow, fog. That's when you're using that shout, and Leonard is worried that there is a dragon hiding in the clouds or, in the mist-covered mountains close by, and that it will be seen as a challenge. You and I know that that's not quite how the game mechanics work, but for Leonard, he's much more likely to use Whirlwind Sprint, which is a very localised shout that probably can be heard a few hundred metres away, but maybe not much further than that. This is probably no louder than, say, a fireball. But Clear Skies, it really stands to reason that that is a shout that can be heard miles away. That's the sort of shout you would imagine rivals the shout the Greybeards use to summon you to High Hrothgar. I forgot the name for a second. Shouting into the sky with enough force to clear the clouds has got to be a massive trumpet call screaming, "Hello dragons, I'm over here and I'm up for a fight," which of course is not really Leonard's thing. He's reluctant to summon Durnevere, if there's not another dragon around, because, essentially he doesn't want people thinking that he is the reason dragons are attacking. If he's seen by people summoning Durnevere, he, when there's no other dragon around, if there's a dragon attacking and he summons one in the chaos, it probably won't get noticed, and maybe, maybe he'll get away with it. But again, even though this is probably now his most used shout, he is still careful, you know, in its use because he's worried people will get the wrong idea, etc., etc. Leonard has not actually completely embraced his Dragonborn nature yet. Well, not just the nature, but the title itself, which is unusual because Leonard loves titles. But of course, this title, Dragonborn, comes with a bunch of expectations, and those expectations involve fighting dragons. So, you know, he's not quite there yet. Will the day come where Leonard will embrace this title totally? He'll be so comfortable with fighting dragons that he will start, well, shall we say, chucking around the shouts as a display of power? Maybe. But that day is not now. And, you know, so you shouldn't expect it. And even if that day comes, if the day comes when Leonard is really striding around Skyrim, throwing his shouts around, letting everyone know that the bloody Dragonborn has arrived, and he starts to get comfortable experimenting with these shouts, or he finds a mentor to help him unlock these shouts, there is a chance I will be using a mod, or creating a mod, that nerfs the hell out of some of them. Because some of them, well, some of them are just very, very, very powerful. Or it's not even that they're very powerful, but they would just... they would be the sort of thing that Leonard would use the hell out of. This, in some ways, some of these shouts, become ethereal, for example, are kind of like the bow. If Leonard was the sort of person that wanted to use a bow, who felt he could use a bow, who didn't look at the bow and think, oh god, that's like a big weapon of war and requires lots of effort, he would use the hell out of it and never stop using the hell out of it, and that would be it. It would become the proverbial hammer, everything looks like a nail kind of thing. So even if the day comes that Leonard the Dragonborn is a thing, and I mean an overt thing, some of these shouts will be getting nerfed, so you should probably expect that as well. Okay, so anyway, that's it. That's basically why Leonard is currently not running around shouting. I've made it so that A, he's nervous of the shouts themselves. He's very reluctant to unlock a new shout without a mentor to explain to him exactly what the shout does. Not just some vague feeling he gets having read it on a wall, but a detailed description of what it does, and specifically the fact that it won't make him explode. He's reluctant to embrace the Dragonborn title and nature at the moment, and some of the shouts he's worried will get him into trouble either with the population of Skyrim or dragons. And that's pretty much it. So I hope that's explained it, and you now understand a little better why Leonard is not running around Skyrim shouting, and instead is running around Skyrim complaining.